Hello, keystrokers, and welcome to another Kalene Storytime. Today, I have for you, it's right there on the list, A Superhero's Duty, The Heroes of Corvus Book 1 by Patricia Gilliam. The blurb opener, myth by name, villain by nature, hero by choice. She already has me intrigued, and if any of y'all are so inclined, which I probably should also have the Facebook open, but I don't. I have the YouTube. I have a linkage for you directly to it. And I just realized that I did not have. No, don't do that. There we go. The cover for y'all. If I can actually make it big and pretty. There we go. Haha! There's the awesomeness. Try to make it bigger. Can I make it bigger? There we go. Now we're talking. All right. Yes, Walt. I has the YouTubes. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me, Walt, Corey, Patricia, anyone else out there. It says there's 7 watching. I don't know who else y'all are, but thank you. I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm just going to say there's like 3 twists, just like bam, 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 right in this first chapter. I'm really excited. All right. Part 1. It takes a villain. St. Mary's Hospital, Corvus, Illinois, room 508, 9:17 p.m. We never should have been there that night. It had cost the lives of 3 innocent civilians and 1 egotistical moron. Despite all of that, I'll give you a guess on the youngest survivor's favorite superhero. You still caught the bad guy, right? The boy reached his hand out to me, and the weight of worry left him when I nodded. Thank you. I tried to keep my voice steady. It was my duty. The kid was hooked up to a dizzying array of medical equipment, and I was terrified I'd unplug something if I made a wrong move. Get some rest, Cameron. I promise I'll watch over this place tonight. He nodded and snuggled beneath his blankets. Someone had bought him a Red Bolt action figure since my last visit, and the toy company had somehow perfectly matched my suit's colors. Someone had way too much time on their hands. Can you fly to heaven? Cameron asked. I shook my head, bracing myself for his next question. Instead, he yawned. It's okay. Your family loved you very much. It was the only thing I could think to say. He gripped my gloved hand, more like 3 of my fingers, tighter. I know you miss them, and I'm sure they miss you too. They would want you to get better, though. It won't be easy, but you're not alone. I know, he exhaled and closed his eyes. I just miss them. I waited until he fell asleep before I left and eased the door shut behind me. Thank you for coming back again. A short, red-haired nurse named Beth worked nights and was friendlier to me than the day staff. He just lights up the moment he hears you're in the building. I suppose most of your hero friends stay pretty busy these days. They're all a bit full of themselves, but it comes with the territory. A wave of pain shot from my right leg to the base of my spine. I gritted my teeth and located the closest chair in the waiting room. I won't be back in the field with them anytime soon, but this is important. Maybe even more important. Hope matters to people, especially after tragic events. Yeah, I finally watched the entire video this morning. She broke eye contact and looked at Cameron's room door. There isn't anything more you could have done. You know that, right? What happened wasn't your fault. Why do people say things like that when they don't really mean it? I sighed. Well, his father didn't accidentally drive off that bridge for no damn reason. Her eyes widened, but I was past the point of keeping my mouth shut. There are ground rules, Beth. Things even most so-called villains know how to honor. Fighting in that populated of an area was unnecessary. You were doing your job. Things escalated. It's an entertainment business. I gestured to several patches on my sleeve. Disgusted, I tore one off and held it up to her. Saving Lives from Evil, sponsored by Cordy Coffee Creamer. Half the conflicts on the feed now aren't even real. And it's even better if you can draw out a fight, make it even seem more dangerous. Why do you think the same villains keep cropping up again and again instead of being permanently contained by the feds? It's under the table, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're all on the same payrolls. Is that what happened that night? Disbelief and then anger hit her expression. Some random villain was paid to attack you, like an act. I didn't immediately answer. I wanted to leave, but the elevator now seemed an impossible distance away. Sorry to disappoint, but it's the truth. A child lost his parents and sister. For what? So you could get a few more social media views? She asked, the volume of her voice rising. I found my footing and decided that asking for painkillers was now out of the question. You should feel the guilt from this for the rest of your sorry a lot of people, like me, started off like Cameron. I interrupted, pointing back to his room but attempting to keep my voice down. Only, they had no other family, no money, no good fortune of someone caring about them when they were young. Then some superhuman abilities start to manifest and suddenly the whole planet is beating down your door. With a few exceptions, the only major difference between the two sides is who got to them first. We're all damaged, Beth. We're all guilty. Then why come here and fill a 6-year-old's head with ideas you obviously don't believe? She followed me down the hallway. A couple of the other nurses stared, but then moved on as if I wasn't even there. What do you hope to gain out of all of this? Even more publicity? Is that what Red Bolt stands for now? I pushed the elevator call button to go down, and pressed it a few more times for good measure. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. The elevator doors opened as she said this, but then she stepped inside with me. You're going to get fired if you're not careful. I pushed the call button for the next floor down, hoping she would take the hint. Let it go, and I won't come back. Just tell the kid I'm sorry for everything. I didn't land in front of his family's car on purpose. I was thrown and couldn't move in time. No, you weren't. She shook her head in confusion and pointed her finger at the logo on my chest. You were clear on the other side of the bridge. The guy who attacked you was about that. I removed my mask and inspected a small hole that had developed near one of the eye slots. This is a knockoff from online. I'm pretty sure the same company supplied the real deal, though. They at least got the colors right. Then, where's the real Red Bolt? She pressed herself into the corner of the elevator, as if she thought I'd murdered him. I pressed the button for the ground floor, and the elevator doors shut again. When the car jumped the railing, we both dove into the river. I managed to bust out the rear window and get Cameron to the surface. Then Hero Boy tried to lift the entire car out for some reason. Only, something must have gone wrong. I know the police didn't find his body with the others, but you would think he'd have made an appearance by now. She glared. So, now you're pretending to be him? I put the mask back on and adjusted it. Just for this. His friends know everything. They don't exactly like it, but I think they understand now. I exited and didn't look back at her. Maybe it was best for everyone involved if I walked away while I still could. We'll see you tomorrow night, then, she called out. I hesitated and turned around, but her sudden sunny tone seemed more for the benefit of the families in the lobby than me. Her voice cracked a little, though. You matter to Cameron. More than you know. I forced a smile and gave her an exaggerated wave. It's my duty. As I walked away, I realized I was crying too. So there is a part 2 and a part 3 to this, but I need water. Madden voices are hard. So I'm already loving this. Freaking superhero in Be Missing and some guy's masquerading as him. Tell me more. Hello, Bard of Today. Hello, J. Cliff. All right. Second part of chapter 1. I changed back into my normal street clothes in the bathroom of a 24-hour breakfast restaurant across from the hospital. If either of the two hungover patrons had noticed me enter, they didn't care. "This one's on me," an older waitress said just as I found a table and sat down. I blinked at the full plate in front of me in confusion. "You look like you've had a rough night, kiddo." I'd had plenty of rough nights since I'd moved to Corvus, but contract villains never exactly got free bacon and eggs for it. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but managed to hold it together. "Thanks, I do have money if one of you saved my grandson from a mugger about a year ago." She smiled and patted my hand. "It doesn't really matter if it was you personally or not. I just want to pay it forward to someone trying to make the world a better place." "Thank you," I repeated, still a little thrown off by the gesture. I felt some sense of relief, though, considering I had never mugged anyone. The bacon was just the right crispness and the eggs were fluffy. Despite trying to take my time, it was hard to break the habit of eating fast. I left a tip greater than the cost of a meal underneath the plate and tried to exit before she noticed it. I made it about 3 steps outside before someone shoved me and grabbed my duffel bag. It only contained the Red Bolt suit, but replacing it within a day would have been almost impossible. I hadn't missed a night with Cameron at the hospital since he regained consciousness. "Hey!" I shouted, but of course the guy didn't stop. Why the hell would he? I broke into a run and started to gain on him when I tripped. I caught myself before my head hit the sidewalk, but the damage was already done. Everything below my waist hurt in sharp jabs, an aggravated old injury. At least a dozen people walked around me while I groaned and assumed a fetal position. And then a pair of black leather shoes stopped in front of my face, and I automatically cringed. A gray-haired man in an expensive suit crouched and held his hand out to help me up. Fortunately, I didn't know him, and the nickname my brain generated from his appearance was Grandpa Sherlock Holmes. "My car isn't far. If you can stand, I'll help you." "I can't move right now," I replied, hoping he'd just call for an ambulance instead. The man leaned forward and pressed something against my neck. I felt a puncture, and my eyelids began to droop. "Just so you know, all of my organs are in terrible condition. Not worth stealing. Note to brain. Change this asshole's nickname." I startled awake inside a bedroom and frantically felt my sides and back. There were no bandages, and I wasn't in a bathtub full of ice. Still, this place wasn't a hospital. That made my sudden lack of pain a bit of an issue. It didn't take long to realize that whatever Grandpa Moriarty had given me was just masking symptoms. I still had to use the bed and a dresser to stand and maintain my balance. The only door to the room was shut. When I tested if it was locked, it wasn't. I heard him talking on the phone in the next room. "He's about Nathan's age. Was posing as Red Bolt for the Wilson boy at St. Mary's. I'm running his prints, but I don't believe he's one of ours. Fisher claims he doesn't know any more than we do, but you know how that goes." He trailed off, but I couldn't hear the other end of the conversation. "His blood work came back clean, but he's on edge. Looked as if he thought I was going to kick him while he was down. I'll let you know as soon as I find out anything else. I'll be fine, but I need to go before he wakes up." I hobbled to the nearest window. We were on the 3rd floor of a massive house. Even attempting to scale down with the bedspread and sheets would have left me short. God, the sentence. Every time I practice it. Even attempting to scale down with the bedspread. This sentence is going to kill me. Okay, here we go. Last time, and I'm just moving on. Even attempting to scale down the bedspread and sheets would have left me short enough for the fall to. "It's all right," Grandpa Moriarty shouted from the other side of the door. "You're safe. I don't want to hurt you." I glanced around until I spotted a security camera in an upper corner of the room. I waved to it but angled myself toward the door. This was not good. Especially. "What do you want then?" "Just to talk, that's all." He eased open the door and entered with both hands raised. My senses didn't register him as a threat, but it could have been due to whatever he'd injected me. possible. He's in danger. The life and death kind. And I believe he's already dead, I answered in an uneasy tone. The man flinched as if I'd physically hit him. Look, I'm sorry. I already told his hero frat buddies everything that happened. I thought they had gotten word to everyone else who knew him. We hadn't been on speaking terms for a while. Long story and not your problem. He seemed to recover and gestured for me to leave the room. The reason I asked if he's faked his death several times in the past 2 years, to the point I found it in bad taste. Even after watching that last video, I thought he might have sent you to the hospital in his place while he planned his reappearance. Wishful thinking, I suppose. As I entered the next room, I saw my duffel bag lying on the floor. I picked it up and verified the suit was still inside. It was, but apparently there had been a struggle to retrieve it. The mask was ripped almost in half, and some stray threads of the cape were trapped in the bag zipper. You didn't run down that guy with your car to get this, did you? No, Moriarty replied, but he half smiled at the question. I let him go. He was just a kid, desperate but otherwise harmless. He stared at me without looking away. I started to get a better idea of who I was dealing with. Not quite Holmes or Moriarty, but a guy living somewhere between both. He was trying to figure me out, too. I was hoping it had your identification, since you weren't carrying any on you. No smartphone either. It's a little strange for someone your age. He turned his back to me to check a high-end laptop sitting on a 200-year-old table. At least one of the search programs running was Fed-based, and it was only a matter of time before he'd have more than he'd ever want to know about me. I sat down, feeling pain return in my legs and back. There was no way I'd be able to leave the floor, much less the house, without his help, and we both knew it. I decided to save us both some time. I normally go by Icarus. My 7-year contract villain persona wasn't famous by any stretch of the imagination, and the man's only reaction was to give me a polite nod to continue. For as long as I've done this, I've only taken staged matches and gotten my ass kicked. I can fly, I can take a hit. Under typical circumstances, I can heal up enough to do it all again a week later. It's made me more money than anything else I've ever done in my life. And it was kind of fun before all this happened. Now I honestly don't know what to do. He nodded that he understood. Ever try to win against anyone? He asked. I laughed and shook my head. Why not? There's a lot of money in that too. Not if you want to remain independent, I replied. His eyebrows furrowed as if I'd offended him. In my world, going on an ego trip and flipping a predetermined fight result is a great way to starve. Almost none of the mid-tier heroes and villains really want to hurt each other, or any civilians, for that matter. Those fights are glorified sparring matches where everyone's supposed to go home safe and paid. The horrible thing is, they make you complacent when you run into someone who's actually serious. Red Bolt's being one of those people, he asked. I nodded. He stepped out of the room and returned with 2 bottles of water, handing me one. I know you've already been through this at least a few times, but will you indulge me with a walkthrough of what happened that night? It's still important, or I wouldn't ask. I looked out the room's large window, and then down at the ripped mask in my hands. I still had maybe 4 or 5 hours before Cameron expected me, but I had no idea where we were. Sure, but I have one condition. He took a drink, then twisted the cap back onto his water bottle. How much do you want? Name your price, Icarus, and I promise you'll have it by the end of the day. I shook my head, and he frowned as if he expected me to make a worse demand. I struggled to stand again, but I wanted to be eye level with him. Whoever you are, you obviously have a lot more resources at your disposal than I do. If this entire situation is above the rest of our heads, protect that kid and his nurse so they don't get caught up in it. Please? Is that fair? More than fair, but I was already working on that when I found you. He started to say something else, but his laptop dinged with a notification. Several photos of one of me in my original suit appeared on the display. born name unavailable without additional clearances? Armed robbery? Kidnapping? Assault with a deadly weapon? Attempted murder? I take it you've never lied on a resume to get a job? I asked, but he gave me a skeptical glare. Once you have the time to dig through it, everything dead ends at the same arresting officer. Eli Whitaker was also my booking agent. Said all those charges gave me some credibility and made his job easier. Is he who booked you to be at the riverfront? He pulled up a rolling office chair, and I returned to mine. No. I kneaded the duffel bag in my hands, trying to distract myself from the pain returning in my back. I screwed up. Took the job without running it by him first. All right, for anyone still viewing, there is a part 3, and it's going to go a little bit longer than I usually normally want to do. But this second part of chapter, or third part of chapter 1, is really important to, like, all this juicy bits to bring you into chapter 2, so I'm going to read it. I'm just going to do it. But I need water. Oh, the man voices. The man voices. Okay. 5 nights earlier. I always check the weather forecast before a fight, but there's always the chance of people getting it wrong. What I expected to be a mild and clear night was unusually cold and rainy. I could see my breath in front of my face, and flying generates a fog from body heat if you stay in one place for too long. It's a great effect on camera, but irritating when it comes to visibility. It's also irritating when an opponent is late, leaving you hovering back and forth like an idiot. I need to invest in a thermal layer, a warmer city, I mumbled to myself, rubbing my hands together to stay warm. Maybe Honolulu could use a new villain for a few months. Probably end up getting thrown into a lava flow, which doesn't sound half bad right now. I checked my phone for the time and verified the GPS coordinates again. Had I gotten the date wrong? I knew I was exhausted lately, but I never made stupid mistakes like that. Still, I found myself searching for the direct message from the hero's agent. I couldn't find it, and I never deleted anything before a job was... He came in fast and without warning, causing me to drop my phone into the river. It was a cheap prepaid. You never want to have anything expensive on you in case it breaks. But after his already being 20 minutes late... Really, man? I oriented myself to face him. I don't know if you're new to this, but a little professional courtesy goes a long... He yelled and tried to come at me again. This time I was ready and dodged. He seemed sloppy and unprepared, which just made my job harder. Rain started to fall on us in large, freezing drops. I looked up, and marble-sized balls of hail pelted my visor. This was weird weather to me, but I've only lived in Corvus for about 2 months. I thought Eli had oversold his home city so he could book more local fights, but I started to regret bypassing him on this one. If I hadn't already been paid such a generous advance, I would have ended it there and gone home. Did you do it? The hero asked, and I got a better look at him. He was dressed as Red Bolt, someone who definitely didn't need help with reputation building. There had been a more serious mix-up than I thought. Did you kill her? And I started to explain when he rushed me. By the time I broke free, we were near a bridge, near actual traffic. This guy was insane, but I'd encountered a few egomaniacs who thought putting civilians in danger could make them a fortune. People stopped their cars and got out their phones to video us. Breaking character would have been an expensive career mistake for me, but I also didn't like being in an out-of-control situation. Hey, Red Bolt, time out. I made a T with my hands, but tried to sound taunting. I also eased back over the water so he could head away from the bridge on his next move. He glared at me. I've killed a lot of people recently. You need to be more specific. I found myself whirled around and pressed against bridge support within less than a second. He had a tight hold on my throat, and I was pinned. Did you kill her? He repeated. How did he expect anyone to answer him without the ability to breathe? His eyes were wild, furious, and I got the sense that he just wanted an excuse to kill somebody. I knew what that felt like, but by that point I was in no mood to try to talk him down. I raised my knees to my chest and kicked out, launching him away from me, but driving myself into unyielding concrete in the process. The lower half of my body went numb, and I started to fall toward the water. Red Bolt caught me before I hit, but it wasn't a rescue. He flew up higher and then threw me down toward the bridge. The feeling returned to my body long enough for me to land upright, but then I heard a car horn blare behind me. I turned around to be blindsided by a set of headlights. I shut my eyes, expecting the impact, but then tires squealed. The car swerved, hitting a patch of icy debris that sent it over the railing of the opposite lane. Something that, until that moment, I'd only seen in movies. Stunned, I turned back to see Red Bolt hovering above the bridge about 10 meters away from me. At first I wasn't sure if the car even registered his attention. I was still his primary target, and I scrambled for some explanation of how this was personal to him. The car splashed down below us. I ran to the railing to see it sinking hood first. A small boy and girl turned around in the back seat and looked up at me, terrified. And that is actually the end of the entire look inside. Yeah, so I absolutely love this opening chapter. I mean, you start off with, like, there's a hero visiting this sick boy, then you find out, oh my gosh, the hero's actually missing, and some dude's masquerading as him to keep the image up, only to find out that he's actually a villain. Not to mention, all of the superhero villain stuff is some corporate conglomeration for people to make money. It's just like, oh, there's so many juicy bits and strings in here. Good job, Patricia. I hope you enjoyed my read. I got a little crusty there in the middle. My throat was giving out. That's my excuse. Thank you, J. Cliff. Fabulous story and excellent read. I love reading for y'all. Yeah. Thanks for watching. And let me make this go away. Hang on a second. There we go. So let's see, Patricia, next week, speaking of J. Cliff, we will have Hawks of the Sorcerer Queen, Terror and Talons, Book 1 by J. Clifton Slater. Bard of Today. What? You can't end it there. I have to end it there because that's literally where the look inside ends. So that's just the end of what I can read. Kalene Big. Hello, Walt. And then after J. Cliff, we're going to have Enemy Lines, The Separatist Wars, Book 0 by Thomas Webb. And I am still trying to do these things on Sunday as well. So far, Sunday does not seem to ever happen. I don't know what it is about Sunday in my household, but all the stuff seems to be happening on Sundays, but I'm still going to try. So yeah, so it'll just be a random pop-up, but definitely every Thursday, every Wednesday, 4:30 Eastern. And yeah, so be sure to check us out. Oh, I think it's this week. Writer's Journey is not going to be on Saturday. It's going to be on Friday. We will put up an update on that because our guest couldn't make it for the Saturday, so we had to switch times, which happens sometimes. Alrighty. Hello, Corey. So yeah, that's it. Be sure to check out all the shows we got going on. If you haven't hit the survey so that we can deliver more good, fun stuff to you and figure out where we can do better, go into the KSM Facebook group and find that and get that filled up. Give us your input. We would love to hear it. We'd love to hear all the things. If you want to have your story read on Kalene Storytime, please send me the first chapter. If you have a pen name, I need to know what the pen name is. Otherwise, I'm going to be announcing your personal name so that also I can find it on Amazon. I need the title or at least just an Amazon link to it. Can also do to K Williams at nosafewordsllc.com. And alrighty. I'll see y'all next time for more reading. Definitely all the reading, writing, and everything in between, because we all have the in-between on Keystroke Mediums. Kalene Storytime! Woohoo! All right. End broadcast.